Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. My name is CJ Duncan. I'll be your host today for the Yellowhammer Sports Podcast. We took a hiatus during the summer. We hope you enjoyed your summer, we are officially back for football season, the best season of them all. We will be your content driver for the 24-25 season. And I understand, we had a week zero game over in Dublin, Ireland. Sure, everybody got a chance to watch that one. We had Georgia Tech and also Florida State. Excellent game, but we know the season really starts when the SEC gets going. And this weekend, we've got a slate of games that I'm looking forward to watching. But just to start off, a couple of housekeeping notes here. As you all can tell, things are a little bit different here at Yellowhammer. Before we were more of an audio platform, but now we've added the visual, so you all can look forward to that. We're going to have content across all platforms at Yellowhammer, whether that's Instagram or Twitter. But we're also going to have special guests. And today we've got a treat for you. We have one of my childhood best friends with me today. This guy was probably one of my first teammates ever. We've shared a lot of laughs, a lot of cries, but also a lot of wins together as well. He is a Montgomery, Alabama legend, nationally ranked high school football All-American, a college graduate, University of Alabama captain, a national champion, an NFL draftee, an NFL coach, and last but not least, he's also a YMCA football champion as well. Shaun Dion Hamilton, my brother. It's so good to see you, man. How's everything going?
Man, this is going great, bro. Appreciate all of the accolades. You made me feel special right now. But man, it's great being on. Love what you're doing. I'm excited to be on the show.
Oh man, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. And dude, you are a special guy, man. We've been at this thing for, man, it's got to be what, 23 years now. It feels like 23, 24 years since like 5, 6 years old. Um,
Dude, it's wild.
it,
It's wild to think about it. Your dad was my first football coach. Like you said, first team, like, just as little kids, and now here we are almost 30 years old.
Man, almost 30 years old, man. And what's even crazier, time is flying by, but I can honestly say, even at that age, we had the vision of being where we are today, especially on the athletic playing field. But what's new with you, man? I mean, of course I know, but let's tell the people what's going on with you. Of course, we've already mentioned playing at Alabama and now coaching. What's going on? Tell us about it.
Man, so we just wrapped up training camp. Disappointing for what just made our big cuts and things like that a couple of days ago. But getting the roster all set. Our first game will be open up next Sunday night against the Rams. So that's gonna be exciting, man. Enjoying some good off time. Like I mentioned, my girlfriend and I are traveling to Colorado to, like you said, this football season. So nothing better than the start football season with some good college football, man. It's not SEC football, but it'll do.
You know what? I think Coach Prime and the Buffaloes are due for now. I mean, especially for a Thursday night, that'll be very entertaining. But for those who don't know, Shaun Dion is actually coaching with the Detroit Lions. So let's take it back a little bit. I believe Detroit was the last team that you played for before retiring. So explain to the people how you've made this look so effortlessly. I mean, I've seen so many guys go from playing to coaching, or at least wanting to coach. But man, you were playing one day, and you know what? They said, don't leave the facilities. We still need you. So tell us how that happened.
Man, so what I told my trust, well, I got released by Washington in what was it, after the 2020 season. Detroit claimed me. I was playing pretty good. I had a good training camp at 21. I ended up tearing my tricep in the first preseason game. They re-signed me the next year, and was going through OTAs, went through training camp, and was having a nice training camp and things like that. And we had drafted like some young guys, and at that point in time, I'm a 5-year vet, and you're a little older, so you're more like the mentor slash leader or the coach, for the young guys. I was always the guy who the coaches are telling the young guys, like, oh, like, look how he does this and that. And I love that role. I've always been like a natural leader and things like that. And but I end up that whole training camp, I was grooming up the younger guys, so I know like I'm competing with them. I never took it personal, just because of nothing is like making a difference, or helping like the teammates out. But I got released after what the second preseason game, and Dan and Brad, they set me down, and they were like, "Hey, man, like you think that you have a lot of value, just as a person, as a leader, like all things, see how the guys like respond to you and stuff like that. If you don't have any serious interest from teams, man, we want you back on our staff in some capacity." So I sat at home for like a week and a half. Got some phone calls from two or three different teams, said that they were going to put me on that workout list, and you know, I was like, man, I realized how much I actually needed to be a part of the game. And so I hit up our defensive coordinator, hit up Dan, and told him, like, man, I'm full throttle into this thing. And the rest was history. I started work with that Sunday before we played the Eagles, and the following Sunday. So it started really fast for me.
Wow. Well, I mean, you know what? I'm not surprised, but I think that's such a testament to who you are as a person, who you've always been. I think on every single team that you've been on, you've been some form of a captain or in a leadership role at some point, and so that hasn't stopped. No matter what accomplishments that you've had over the course of your career, you still maintain high integrity and leadership. One thing that I do want to ask you before we move on is what is this new Detroit Lions that we're seeing? In the past, we all know what we've seen. Things have not always looked on the up and up as they do now. What is different in this organization? What is different with how you all move? What's the culture like now that you're inside the building?
I think that, just piggybacking on what I was just speaking about, how I transitioned to coaching. I think I've never been around like it's a different type of culture there where I always tell people, say, man, just imagine a bunch of former players leading the team, someone like your coolest or, down to earth, laid back players. So the culture different is unmatched. I mean, like Dan Campbell, man, one of the best leaders I've been around down to earth. Like, man, from handling situations, like going through adversity, man, he prepares us for everything throughout the season. I think there's nothing else better than everything he's talked about since he first got the job in 21 to now. We've achieved, and a lot of that has came from man, just put in the work. That's one thing he always just says, man, put in the work, put in the work, put in the work, put in the work. Each year we just kind of a little bit better. Now we're going to be definitely the hunted. And so we still the hunter. That's something he always mentions. So
Yeah.
man, it's an unbelievable culture, and you enjoy going over every single day because we got a great group of coaches and players, to work with daily.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I think I'd like to argue as well. It probably started when y'all started adding some more Alabama football players to the team. You know, you've had three in the last two drafts, or maybe more. I could be missing somebody.
There's no doubt that where you people being around winning cultures. I mean, him and our DC that came from New Orleans with Sean Payne, where they had a lot of success for 4 or 5 years. And like you said, you start adding players that have been around winning cultures, and that are very successful in college. Where man, they get to the league, that's all they know is winning. So it's easy for them to hold guys to certain standards.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I totally get that. And speaking of Alabama, man, you have been on some of the greatest college football teams in history. And on those teams, you have also been a captain. Tell me, now, how do you feel about your legacy? How do you feel about the things that you were able to accomplish while at the University of Alabama?
Man, you know what? It's crazy. You don't realize it until you leave. You talk to peers or coaches, the amount of respect, and I'm a young guy, but when you talk to like older coaches and they applaud you for success and things like that, I'm like, wow. I mean, it's a blessing. The things or the people I got to interact with. I'll probably say it really hit me once Coach Saban retired. I'm like, wow. I was a captain for arguably like the greatest coach of all time. And
It's not
I always
arguable.
would go
It's
back
not. It's not arguable. He is
right.
the greatest.
But yeah, man, it's really cool. I've learned so much. I think that like day in, day out of life, it helps me, as being a better human being, a better football coach, better like all top to bottom. It's really cool.
Yeah. No. I mean that's amazing. I mean, you think about how you were chosen to lead so many outstanding football players. Of course, you were great in your own right, but the fact that they leaned on you, they trusted you with that responsibility, I think that just means that says so much about you and your character. Um, and unfortunately, I had the chance to play against one of these teams. I can't remember what year it was, but it was definitely my senior year in Nashville, Tennessee. And
Yeah.
when I tell you that game got ugly at the first snap, man, uh, Dion, what do you remember
You
about
see what I mean?
the game, man? What like that was? I mean, I was so embarrassed, man. I didn't want to show my face anywhere. I mean, I went into that game knowing, okay, we're not going to match up with this team. All right. Like, this team is one of the all time great teams that you'll see assembled. You know, the backup players are going to be NFL guys. The third string guys ended up being NFL guys at Alabama. But we had enough talent at the skill position that I'm thinking we could at least make some plays. We can make a couple splash plays here and there, go from there. Man, I don't think we crossed the 50 in the first half. What do you remember about that game, man?
Dude, I remember first the lead up to the game because I remember I can't was it the offensive line or defensive line? I can't remember. You guys had just
Defensive
beat
lineman.
Kansas. Yeah, you just beat Kansas State, and he started saying, "Family, you're next" or whatever. I can't tell you how many of those pictures we had all throughout our facility. And Saban does a great job at motivating us. And so, we got off the bus with our hair on fire. We took it so personal, where, we really thought, oh, nobody's scared of us anymore. So it was so funny. It's so great, like now seeing how coaches can trick the players into thinking this, thinking that, to get them to play a certain type of way. But man,
Yeah,
it was a hot game, but it was a fun game.
yeah, man. We were hoping we could sneak up on y'all, get a couple touchdowns here and there. I mean, but Nephi jumping out there at the Kansas State game, giving y'all bulletin board material was not great for us at Vanderbilt. It just wasn't. And you know what? I will defend Nephi. I will defend him in this space. I will say it was taken out of context. It really
Right.
was.
Yeah.
Bama was next on the schedule. He was looking at it from a literal sense. You were next. It wasn't like, oh, we think we're better than Bama. You were literally next on the schedule. And we had gone through some dark times at Vanderbilt, man. We hadn't won a lot of games. So we start off 3-0 and beat a ranked opponent from a different conference, and things just looked a little bit different. You can't stick a mic in the guy's face when he's emotional, man. You know what I mean? But man, y'all were an amazing team. I tell you what, it was fun to just watch all on the sideline. Eventually, we all got pulled from the game when it got out of hand, and just to watch y'all play at such a high level, man, it was an honor. It truly was. Um, Next thing, all right. So this season, 2024, 2025 season, this will be the first time in 17 years that the tide has run out of the tunnel without Nick Saban, Coach Nick Saban,
Mm.
the greatest coach of all time. What did Coach Saban mean to you in your career?
Oh man, it's the amount of lessons I've learned from Coach Saban. I probably say start off even during the recruiting process. He had the most different recruiting slash evaluation process that I had ever been a part of. I feel like every other school, you know, like I was surprised, Jewel, or they made you feel so special, whatever. Not that Alabama didn't, but I mean, just the standard how he just was wired, how he went about business. I think once being as a recruit, I'm like, okay, it's something different here. Then you get to school, man. You learn so much from, I think, like a details perspective and accountability perspective, like the consistency. I've never seen somebody be as consistent in the day to day operations. Is that team meetings, if that's watching film, if that's man, I've never seen somebody. This dude literally would eat the same thing like breakfast and lunch every single day. And that it's just hard to as a player, right? You see all these great players that come before you from Dante Hightower, CJ Mosley, Julio Jones, you name it, Trent Richardson, Derek, whoever. And when he tells you things about like, okay, guys, we got to do things this way or that way or whatever, you can't do nothing but listen and respect him and do things because I mean, so many other guys who are like more talented or have been in your shoes have been doing that thing that he's got them to the level to the NFL, graduating college, whatever it may be. So just like little things like the standard, man, the consistency, the accountability, and just life lessons that I'll never ever like forget.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm sure there's so many emotions when it comes to Nick Saban. What are you pulling from now that you're a coach? What are you taking? Of course, you've got to be yourself. That's what got you the job in Detroit. But what are some of the tricks of the trade that you are using now that you probably learned from Coach Saban?
I would say now it's one thing I always remember Coach Saban always preach, man, the poor me's. He always talked about you know, it's hot outside. I don't feel like doing this, or I don't feel like practicing. Okay, it's great, it's hot outside, but not when the conditions affect you. I think that's something that not just an athlete, but I think every human being should be great in adversity situations or not have the poor meetings, or I don't feel good. Okay, how is that going to affect when you go to work? How is that going to affect how you deal with your kids? Showing up every day, being consistent,
Mhm.
holding yourself accountable when you don't want to, being your biggest critic. So man, those are things that I probably say for sure the accountability like standpoint is one thing that I take every day, looking at yourself in the mirror, knowing that you put your best foot forward.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, on a lighter note, um, let's hear this. Let's for the audience, who was your favorite teammate while you were at Alabama?
Mm.
And I'll split this up into two different categories. One, who's your favorite locker room guy? The guy that just made you laugh, that kept everybody entertained. And then who was your favorite teammate on the field? The guy that you're like, I can trust him. He's got my back. He's gonna make a play for us. Who are those two guys for you at the University of Alabama?
Um, I'd probably say favorite probably locker room guy. I'd probably say two, either Reuben Foster or probably Tony Brown. Both
Okay.
of those guys are just always wired different, like always super silly, always joking, always dancing, all this and that. Like if it's an argument or a loud conversation, you're probably gonna find those two around somewhere. But I'll probably say the teammate who I know who is always gonna make a play. I would say two guys, and they've had a lot of success. Minka Fitzpatrick and Amari Cooper. I would think both of those guys are two of the hardest workers I ever been around. And they were the same day in and day out. Like always, they practice extremely hard. And I always thought that like, wow, they as great of players as they are, they always showed up. They always made plays in the big games.
Yeah. And they still are. I mean, they are well into their NFL
No doubt.
careers and still making plays and still working like they're rookies. So I mean that is super impressive on their part. Getting back to this season, what should we expect from Coach DeBoer and this new team? Who should we be looking out for? What should we expect from this team this year? Is it the same Alabama standard and culture, or do you think things will be a little different?
It's I would say just from like the social media standpoint, man, it's always so different or so funny now. You see the Alabama Instagram post this or guys have long sleeves on at practice or all. It's as a former saving player, is, you're getting adjusted to it. But man, I'm excited to see, just like a new culture, new team, like things like that, new coaching staff. I'm excited to see Miller. I think he was great last year, but I think he's gonna take the next step this year, with a new system. Coaches adapting to him. I think we've got some great receivers coming back. Got return a lot of returners like on the offensive line. And defensively, I'm excited to see Malachi Moore in the back end and Deontay Lawson. Both of those guys came back for, I want to say, their fifth year, senior year. So just leading the troops, man, and just, getting Bama back to that standard, like we've always been in, us, those guys trying to erase, losing against Michigan in the semifinals and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then you all also added a lot of key players in the portal. You even had a guy enter the portal, go to a different school, then come back to Alabama, realize that the grass was not necessarily greener. But I agree. I expect really big things from Alabama this year. There's a lot of noise around it right now just because we're losing an icon. But at the same time, you've got to. My dad used to always tell me, he was like, listen, he was like, it doesn't matter about the X's and O's. You still got to have the Jimmies and the Joes. And Alabama's got Jimmies and Joes. Their Jimmies and Joes are better than everybody else's. So they're going to find ways to win the ball game or the ball games, plural. Speaking of Milroe, I mean, he ended last season on a tear. I mean, in the Heisman conversation. And now he's adding someone like Coach DeBoer, who worked with Michael Penix Jr. last year. Do you think that we're going to see a lot of what we saw from Washington last year, or will Jalen be able to still be himself? Will he still be able to be a dual threat, run the ball as much as needed, or do you think he will be kind of concise to that pocket?
I think DeBoer is going to maybe unlock his potential. I think with, from coming from Penix, and then you talking about Milroe can definitely make all the throws, has a super strong arm. But I think it's gonna be interesting to see like exactly what type of. I think the board brings a different flavor, maybe that Alabama hasn't seen probably since like I would say like Blake Sims. I think early on, he's gonna do a lot of maybe mixing up running and passing, getting a true like feel for him. And I think that he's gonna man, I think he'll let him spin it 30 times a game
Yeah.
and also call, quarterback design runs, as well. So it's going to be exciting. I don't think the board's probably never had a quarterback, as athletically in the passing game, in the run game, as he's had with Milroe. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, not many coaches can say that. I mean, he's got the build of a Lamar Jackson kind of guy, and you can just see his growth as the year went on last year, and what he did in that LSU game. If he can just copy and paste that for the rest of the year, Alabama's going to be in good shape. And the final few questions here, Dion. So if we're assuming Alabama's going to be the Alabama of old, we've got the 12-team playoff now. In your estimation, give me the biggest threat in the SEC and the biggest threat out of the SEC for Alabama this year. Who's going to stop them if they are stopped to get into that national championship?
So I would say two teams in the SEC, Georgia and Texas for sure. Um, those teams, I would see those are identical to Alabama. Great rosters, great coaching staff. Team that could stop them outside the ACC, I would say Ohio State. Ohio State's put together a great roster, and they add Chip Kelly to the staff. So Chip Kelly, Ron Day on top of all of those guys they've got on the portal, and they're gonna be really really good.
Yeah, yeah, no, and speaking of Ohio State, they added a Alabama product, Quinshawn Judkins, who formerly played at Ole Miss. He's now running back at Ohio State, which is going to be hard for the Big Ten to deal with. He's a great player, future NFL guy. For sure. Speaking of Texas, I kind of go back and forth with Texas, man. I understand that Sark is building this program, and they finished off late in the playoff last year. Played extremely well. But I go back and forth about how I feel about Texas. Some days they look like world beaters, right? And then other days they could be playing a lesser team and they win by a field goal. Do you think we're going to start to see some consistency with Texas? And then, preseason, they had a running back go down for the year, and they've had little nicks and knacks here. When are we going to see some consistency? I mean, even with Quinn Ewers, there's a lot of hype around him right now and what he can be. But, he'll show us what he showed us against Alabama a couple years back in the first half, but then he'll struggle mightily as well. When are we going to see that consistency with Texas?
Dude, I think it's no better time for Sark and those guys to put it all together when you're joining the SEC.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing, I mean, CJ, you played in that conference, dude. It's any Saturday you can get beat. So, you got to put on your hard hat, ready to go. So, I hope that they do. If not, they'll find themselves 8-5 and playing in the mayonnaise bowl or something like that.
That's exactly right. I think Coach Saban mentioned that it may have been SEC Media Days. Well, he said, listen, it's great that these teams are coming to the SEC, but it's going to be a transition.
Oh,
Whether you
yeah.
like it or not, it's one thing to get revved up for 2 or 3 games in a season. You tell your guys, I need you for 2 or 3 weeks where you're playing at your best. That's one scenario. But each and every week, and you have to be ready. You got to be at your best. That takes a lot mentally. You got to get ready for Kentucky on the road at night. You've got to get ready for Missouri in November. I mean, Neyland Stadium.
That's
I mean,
right.
you can't just show up and think you're going to win the ball game. These are games where it's not necessarily Alabama and Georgia, but if you go in there half asleep, you will get beat. And
No
so
doubt, bro.
that's what makes our conference special. And Dion, it has been an honor to have you on this platform with me, the Yellowhammer Sports Podcast. Man, you always have a seat here whenever you want to come back. But we want to wish you good luck with everything this season, and we look forward to talking with you soon. But that'll be it for our podcast today. We'll wrap it up there. We look forward to catching up with you guys after week one for further discussion on all things SEC and college football. Please follow our Yellowhammer News Twitter, YouTube, Spotify. That's where you'll find all of our content. We appreciate you all joining in and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks for having me, CJ.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate you.